Welcome back, everyone, to CINEMATICON Ex Mortis, the horror movie discussion podcast hosted by
Heather
and Kenny. And
we're gonna get that straight.
Someday we'll get it. For this episode, we're going to be looking at Dracula from 1931, the English language version, because there is a Spanish version. We'll talk about that, although really it deserves its own episode. So let's talk about some of the basic facts about the movie. So this was released in February of 1931, so 9 months before Frankenstein, making it the first major sound horror film ever. Directed by Tod Browning, it stars Bela Lugosi, Helen Chandler, Edward Van Sloan, and Dwight Fry. It was written by Garrett Fort, and it was an adaptation of the famous Bram Stoker 1897 novel, of course, but by way of the 1924 stage version, which was written by Hamilton Dean and John L. Balderston. So that had been a big hit on Broadway, so they made it into a movie. The cinematography is by Karl Freund, who is well known in the horror genre for having directed The Mummy the next year, but he also previously worked on a bunch of classic silent films, including Metropolis. So he's a really important cinematographer. So I guess I'll start by doing a little plot summary here. And we are going to spoil the film. So if you already saw or listened to our Nosferatu episode, it already kind of got spoiled because it's the same story. But and also this next part of the podcast may be quite boring to you because you will have heard a very similar plot summary before. So we apologize for that.
I don't apologize.
Heather does not apologize, but I apologize for both of us. So there's nothing you can really do when someone apologizes on your behalf. You have been apologized for.
Okay. No.
So that's that. Okay, so young professional Renfield arrives in Transylvania to draw up papers for Count Dracula's purchase of Carfax Abbey in London. On his way to Castle Dracula, fearful villagers warn Renfield against going up to the castle, saying that vampires live up there. But he does not heed their advice. Dracula turns out to be a creepy weirdo who walks through spiderwebs without disturbing them, and never drinks wine. In the night, Renfield is approached by the Count's trio of vampiric brides, but Dracula waves them away and bites the solicitor's neck himself. By the time Dracula ships out for London, Renfield is a raving maniac and the Count's devoted henchman. It's up to a cast of city folk, including Professor Van Helsing, Sanatorium Administrator Dr. Seward, Seward's daughter Mina, and Mina's fiancé John Harker, to stop Dracula from draining all the necks in London. So, we just recently rewatched this movie. I think we've both probably seen this several times. You've seen this one before, right?
Oh yeah.
So what did you think of it, this recent watching of it?
Well, I always like it. That's never going to change. But obviously I have different opinions about it every time I've seen it. This is the first time I've watched it and paid really close attention because, homework is due.
Yeah.
So
did you notice anything that you didn't see before?
I think I noticed a lot of little things. What about you? Did you?
Yeah. This time I was thinking more about Dracula's powers. I guess seeing a bunch of vampire things in a row, it makes you think about the little changes that each movie makes to the vampire lore. When we watched Nosferatu, we were talking about how that's the first movie where vampires are killed by sunlight. And then in this one, so I was kind of thinking about okay, what does he do? I mean, he turns into a bat several times. That's something he can do. Orlok never did that. And then but his powers are just kind of nebulous. It's never really explained what exactly he can do. And he has these sort of weird things that he does, doors just kind of open for him on their own. He doesn't ever have to very open a door with his
It's a very
hands.
Specific telekinesis.
Yeah, it only seems to affect doors. But who knows? He might have just telekinesis in general.
But we only see him use it for that thing.
Yeah. And it may just be, Yeah, like it may just be like the doors of his castle are like enchanted or something. But and then like when he's leading Renfield up the steps, like that's a really famous sequence where there's this like giant ass cobweb that covers the whole walkway, and we see Dracula leading Renfield towards it, and it's like, okay, well, what's he going to do when he gets there? We just cut back to Renfield as he looks astonished, and then we cut back to Dracula. He's on the other side of the cobwebs, and then Renfield has to like kind of push them away as he goes through. So it's like, well, what did Dracula do? What did Renfield see? I really like that moment.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where like the movie's kind of hiding from us the extent of Dracula's strange, uncanny abilities.
Well, I kind of like that. I like that there's stuff left to the imagination. I think when people try too hard to portray that, it can get like muddy, and then it can look stupid.
Yeah.
And then it just ruins everything.
Yeah.
I like mysterious things.
Like I would say, I mean, we talked about this in our White Zombie episode. The bats in this movie,
Yeah.
they look stupid, I have to say. I mean, they look bad. I mean, I don't know that it's so much the puppet itself, but just the way that it moves. Like, it just sort of floats in the air and flaps its wings, and it's like, that's not how flying works.
No, but maybe they ran out of money, and they were like, just run out to the Halloween store and just get us some bats. And
The animals in general, like the puppet animals in this, like in that scene that we were talking about with the spider web, we see the spider like crawl away, and it's like a rubber giant rubber spider that's just being like pulled on a string away. It looks like quite silly. And then there's a part where Renfield in the insane asylum is trying to eat a spider, and the keeper is getting it away from him, and the keeper, they could have just had nothing there and just had the keeper, pull something that was in his hand and just flick it away or something. Yeah. But instead they had a big rubber spider, and he kind of like dangles it between his two fingers. And it's like, okay, that's, that would be in a novelty store. That's clearly not an actual spider. So yeah, there's that. I think that the special effects in this really pale in comparison to those in the 1922 Nosferatu. I like that one better for special effects. But what I do like in this one is like all the sets and the crazy matte paintings. Like when they go to Dracula's castle, we see the carriage like going up towards the castle, and there's like this crazy like I don't know. The castle is kind of like up on a cliff, and there's the path leading up to it has like these big cliffs on either side of it. And it just looks really cool. So I really like the art there and the way that it's integrated. Like we can see the carriage moving up at the bottom of the shot, and clearly at some point that shot just becomes a painting. But it's not very clear like at what point the actual set that they were using ends and where the matte painting begins. It's really well done.
Yeah, I think that's pretty unique and interesting.
How do you feel about this film overall, Heather?
I love it, but I think the major criticism I have is, like I said when we were watching it, there's some places where I would have put music.
Yeah, and they did not put music anywhere because as one of the first sound horror films, and a very early sound film in general, they hadn't really made the transition to having full scores yet. So there's some music over the opening. It's not even original music. It's a bit of Swan Lake.
I read that, yeah.
And then that's it. That's all you get. The rest of the movie is totally silent, as was Frankenstein from later in 1931, which we watched before. But we were talking about how you don't feel it as much in Frankenstein because there's a lot more going on in the sound design in general. Like there's like storms happening, and there's something interesting to be listening to all the time, and you don't always need a musical score in a movie. Like there's some great movies that don't have scores even now, like No Country for Old Men. Did you notice if you watched that?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. Well, I think a lot of people watch that and they don't even notice that it doesn't have a musical score because they're, it doesn't need it.
You told me I'd hate it. So
really?
I never watched it. Yeah.
Why would
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Oh. Well, I retract my statement.
Okay.
You should definitely check it out. I love that movie. But anyway, yeah, I do feel like there are moments in this that are where there's sort of nothing going on sonically, and it can get kind of boring. So some people have tried adding scores. There's a
Really?
Yeah, there's a score composed by Philip Glass. So I've seen the film with that score on it.
Did it improve it or not? No?
I found it distracting.
Okay. Well, then again, you probably were watching it knowing that there's like an added score, so you were looking for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be interested to see just for funsies.
Yeah. So maybe
That's
in a few years
yeah.
we can come back to this and watch it with the score again.
No, we're just going to do 45 different...
Once we run out of horror movies to do.
You want to run out of horror movies?
Yeah, like once we've used all the other horror movies that have come out, then we can come back to this.
I don't think that's going to happen, but everyone should have a dream.
Yeah. And my dream is to do
every horror
billion
movie.
podcast episodes about horror movies.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I think, there are moments where it gets a little boring because of the absence of a score. I think, it can work for it too, though. Like, it can add to just the creepiness.
I think it would be so much worse if it wasn't Bela Lugosi, who just is making that face the whole time, and it's like, that's pretty creepy.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's great. So
this is his breakout role. He was in the play version that this is based on, but as sometimes happens, they were considering ditching him for the film version in favor of a more bankable actor that was already known. That happened. What's the famous? Was it Julie Andrews that happened to?
It's happened to a lot of people.
Yeah. But that it didn't go that way. So I think Tod Browning originally wanted to cast Lon Chaney. That's not the star of The Wolfman, but his father, who had been in a bunch of silent classics like The Phantom of the Opera and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And he had worked with Browning before. So I think the idea was that he was going to be in the role, but he unfortunately died.
Or did he fortunately die?
Maybe for the sake of Dracula and Bela Lugosi's career, but in terms of being a great screen legend, the man of 1,000 faces, I'm sure that we wouldn't wish his demise to have come so soon. So it did end up going to Bela Lugosi, and it launched his career as a villainous or monstrous character actor in like 1 million horror movies. He's one of the first. Him and Boris Karloff, who also his career sort of got jump-started the same year by Frankenstein. They're sort of the two great horror icons.
Yeah. Well, I guess Bela Lugosi agreed to some like ridiculously low salary for this movie, and that's like ultimately why he got it. So I guess that was like kind of a crapshoot, but ultimately it worked out in his favor.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think he always wanted to get away from horror movies and do bigger, better respected movies. He wasn't like somebody who really wanted to be in the horror genre, but he was sort of there by happenstance. He happened to be a Hungarian American actor who could not shake that thick accent, and of course he has this great face to play these characters as well. So, what else are you going to do with them?
Poor thing.
But yeah, he's fantastic. He just really goes for it, and I think there's so many elements of this that feel like a stage play. Like it's a very stagey, early sound movie where, there's just like long scenes that are all in one room and characters just enter and exit and are like, oh no, this exciting thing just happened in the other room. Let me tell you all about it. Instead of like in a movie,
so
like
Frankenstein.
Yeah, Frankenstein was kind of like that, as well.
Because that was based on a play, and then we talked about how that looked like a play in a lot of aspects.
Yeah, and this one I think is like even more so. And the acting a lot of times is like very theatrical, and I think Bela
Oh,
Lugosi's
yeah.
acting is theatrical, but it totally works in his case.
Yeah.
Whereas in some of the other characters' cases, I don't know. I'm not crazy about some of the performances in this.
You're not going to talk shit on Renfield.
Oh no, I loved
Oh,
Dwight
thank
Fry.
God.
So
I was going to leave.
yeah, I'm a huge fan of Dwight Fry. I think he's like the unsung hero
He's
of the
the
Universal
best.
Catalog. Yeah,
I love him. Oh my God. I'm
and
going to
he's in
start a
everything.
fan club.
He's in this. He was Fritz in Frankenstein.
Oh my God.
He was Carl, the hunchbacked assistant in Bride of Frankenstein, who was not the same character as Fritz, but a different hunchbacked assistant.
I didn't even know this.
Well, we talked about it when we did the
Okay, well,
Bride of Frankenstein
that was a long time ago now.
and he's in like all the classic Universal horror movies in some capacity or other.
Well, that's good. Because he's the best.
Yeah, and that's part of what I think like led them to ultimately start crossing over these movies and turn it into like the first cinematic universe long before Marvel did it. Was that these movies kind of all have the same actors anyway. Like they feel like they're part of the same world even before they were. Because, the studio system. So they would have, each studio had its own stable of actors and they would just put them in whatever came out. Yeah, so Dwight Fry, we should say, plays Renfield in this, who is the madman. And he also sort of picks up a bunch of what should be John Harker's role in the film. So in the novel, you have not John Harker, but Jonathan Harker, who goes up to Dracula's castle at the beginning of the story and is doing the real estate thing, selling him Carfax Abbey, and then he does not turn into a crazy person. He escapes from the castle and comes back to London, and then with the other characters, they're trying to, solve the problem of Dracula, and they end up chasing him back to Transylvania and killing him there. Whereas in both film versions, they combine the character of Renfield, who's like this crazy guy who's like a wannabe zombie in the sanitarium in London, with one of the other characters. In Nosferatu, they combined him with Harker's boss, and here they combine him with Harker himself, which has, I think, the maybe intended, maybe unintended consequence of leaving Harker with like almost nothing to do in the movie. So, I mean, I don't know why they did that exactly. Like, I guess they just felt like they really wanted to have Renfield in the movie because he's like so interesting, this crazy guy, the blood is the life, like that whole thing. Like, you gotta have him, gotta have Renfield, but they wanted him to do something in the earlier part of the film, or they needed to connect him to the plot in some way, and they couldn't figure out a way to do that beyond combining him with another character.
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like reverse engineer these strange decisions, because I mean, I think it works fine in Nosferatu to just make him Harker's boss, because that's a character that, should probably get combined with somebody else as you're simplifying the story and trying to minimize the number of characters. And it gives Renfield something to do in the earlier part of the movie. But here it's like now Harker is like a nothing character. Like, he's just Mina's fiance who is like confused about her turning into a vampire in the second half of the movie. And then I guess at the very end, when Van Helsing goes to stake Dracula, he asks Harker to like get him a rock or something to put the stake in. So he goes and gets something. So good job.
That was his one thing that he did?
Yep, he got a metal thingy that he used to pound the stake into his heart.
Yeah. I thought that I probably was exaggerating that in my mind, how useless he was, but apparently not.
Yeah, he does nothing. And the actor does nothing for me, I have to say.
Oh, yeah, no, I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. I don't know what that guy looks like or what he did or anything.
Yeah, one of the actors that I do think is pretty good other than Bela Lugosi is the one who plays Mina, Helen Chandler.
Mm-hmm.
I thought her scenes were some of the most effective in the movie as far as like being actually creepy, because that's one thing we haven't talked about is like how scary is this movie still. To me, like, not very, but there are certain scenes that kind of kind of still work. And one of them is where Mina is telling the story of the dream that she had the night before, which actually wasn't a dream, we know, where she was bitten in the neck by Dracula, and her just like describing it and kind of like getting carried away as she's seeing in her mind's eye what she saw the night before. You can kind of see like the sort of vacant stare as she tells the story, and the camera kind of like zooms in on her face.
She did a really good job, like Bela Lugosi did, of just like, I don't know, silent acting. Like, it's just like her facial expressions. I know there's a term for that. I can't think of it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Using body language.
Sure. But, she doesn't... It's just like her facial expressions, and it's called like micro acting or something like that.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, but she's really good at it.
Yeah, and she's just interesting to look at. And yeah, so she's pretty good. Van Helsing, another like very theatrical performance bordering on wooden. But he does okay. Edward Van Sloan is another one of those guys who's in like all these movies. He was in Frankenstein. He was Henry Frankenstein's sort of teacher.
Oh yeah,
guy.
Yeah.
So he's in that too. He's in all these.
He was also hard to tell because it's black and white, and it's like, you can't really remember people's features so good because they're fuzzy. So.
Yeah. He's also in Frankenstein, the guy who comes out at the beginning of the movie and warns you not to watch it if you're like a scaredy cat. Do you remember that? There's like curtains and a guy comes out all sort of dressed up in a suit and tie, and he's like, I'm here to warn you that this film may be too much for some viewers. Yeah.
Didn't they do something like that for Dracula too, and they cut it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not aware of that.
Oh, I read something about they did that for Dracula, but it was like too scary. They said something like, if you find yourself afraid and you go home at night and look behind the curtain, like, don't feel crazy because vampires are real.
Oh, wow.
And they cut it out because, like, oh my God.
That was just a bit too much.
Yeah. That was like, you can't be like telling people that the supernatural exists. Like, that's a big no-no. Can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of weird that they would do that for their second horror movie instead of their first. The thing where seems like they're worried that it'll be too scary for the audience. So it makes sense that they would have thought about putting it in the first one.
Well, apparently it got like so damaged to like you can't even find it anymore. I don't think it got destroyed or whatever. So
we've got those actors. The other ones I'm not crazy about are the insane asylum caretaker guy.
I don't like that guy because he's like abusive to the mentally ill.
He is. Well, he's abusive, but that's the character.
Well, I just don't like him.
Okay. Well, I mean, he is supposed to be like the comic relief, I think.
What?
Like his scenes are always supposed to be comic.
He was like borderline the most terrifying character in the movie.
He's not scary.
He's so abusive.
What did he even do? He didn't do anything.
He's like always mocking Renfield.
Yeah, okay, so he doesn't...
He's crazy!
He's crazy.
He's crazy. He says that
They're
like 45
all crazy.
times.
Yeah, he's got this obnoxious accent.
He does have a really obnoxious accent.
And, I mean, he's really not abusive, though. I mean, he just doesn't have, like, the modern attitude toward the mentally ill.
He's not woke?
Yeah, he's not woke, but, I mean, that's how people used to be.
I know, but I just don't like him. I just feel so bad for Renfield. I think that, like, anyone who's not super nice to him, I'm like, fuck that guy, you know?
Interesting.
Yep. I got really fixated on some background characters in this movie, not just Renfield.
Well, it's interesting that you like Renfield so much. I mean, I like him, but I like him as a
I feel really bad for him. No. No, no.
I mean, he does want to be a vampire.
I mean, everyone has issues.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to even make sense of his character for me because, like, I mean, combining the characters the way they did is really weird.
No, that makes sense.
like when he's doing the Harker thing at the beginning, he's like just a normal dude. And then it takes like all of 4 hours for him to turn from that into this completely different character who's just this madman.
Well, we understand from other things that are said in the movie that like he must be really weak-willed, right? Like
I guess.
He's a weakling. So he was probably already on the edge of insanity for whatever reason, and
But they didn't show that. Like
I know. But he had to have been.
They should have established him as already being like neurotic,
Like really
and like
high-strung.
or maybe like he has a fascination
really
with
stressed
vampires, and he kind of went on this job because he wanted to meet Dracula because he's kind of obsessed with him already, or something like
So
that.
he like has like that modern day sickness where you think you're a vampire. You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't heard of that. I know that thinking you're a wolf is a thing, like lycanthropy.
Oh, well, there's one for vampirism.
Okay.
And actually, there's a disorder named after Renfield. There's a Renfield disorder.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's
and
cute.
it's like similar to believing you're a vampire. It's like these people kill little spiders and flies and shit and drink their blood and.
Doesn't everybody do that? That's not weird.
Okay.
So yeah, Dwight Fry is fantastic in this.
Yeah, he put everyone else to shame, pretty much.
I mean, yeah, he's going all in.
He should have won 4 Academy Awards for that.
Yeah, I mean, there are just certain lines that the actors will say in a way that's just very.
His laughter is so creepy too.
His laughter is great.
He laughs. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, he has like maybe my favorite line in the movie. Just it's hilarious just the way he says it. When Van Helsing says something like, "Well, you wouldn't know Count Dracula," and he says, "Dracula? I never even heard the name." It's like I believe that.
Yeah.
That's like the least believable way you could possibly say that.
Yeah.
So
okay.
He has that, and then Bela Lugosi. The line I love from him is when he says, "We will be leaving tomorrow evening."
Uh-huh.
The way he said, he like draws it out in this like very beautiful way, like this ordinary line. He makes so much out of like this very utilitarian line.
Well, I read that part of what was so scary about this movie when it came out was like the way he pronounced words and had space in between them, and it made him seem quote unquote like a living corpse. And that's what scared the shit out of everybody. So that had something to do with it.
I hadn't thought of that.
That line in particular, I never would have thought of that, but I read it. So, did you know that this movie came out on Valentine's Day?
No, I did not.
And that in some ads it was portrayed as a love story. And I'm like, oh, there's some angry people out there that went to see this movie under some very false pretenses.
Yeah, I mean, you can do Dracula as a love story, like the 1992 Francis Ford Coppola, Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Why can't I just escape this movie? Why?
Do you want to do that one
movie,
next time?
Not really. I mean, a little bit, but not. That movie's so bad, and everyone talks about it like it's so good.
I think it is so good, but yes, we'll have to talk about that at more length sometime. But yeah, in that one they make it a love story where Mina is the reincarnation of Vlad Tepes's princess.
Okay.
And
but
that
here, didn't happen here.
Yeah, I mean, and even in Nosferatu, the romance element is more developed than it is here.
There's a bigger romance aspect in Nosferatu than there is here.
Because they kept the scene in where he sees the picture of Harker's wife in the castle, and he's admiring it. And so then when he goes to London, he's like creeping on her by looking out the window. So they have some establishment of a connection between them. Here, I mean, he goes after Mina, but it really felt to me like he was just doing that to get at Van Helsing. He's like, and Seward and Harker. Like, it was more like he had this rivalry with the male characters who had figured out that he was a vampire and were trying to stop him. And he was like, well, guess what? I'm going to get your chick. You know, so it was really
Mr.
about
Steal Your Girl.
Yeah, it was really this like male rivalry
Snatch
that was
your
going
bitch.
on.
Yeah. Romantic wise, there's nothing going on for me.
Yeah, although, you know, of course, I would say Bela Lugosi is considerably better looking than Max Schreck in the
Just a tad.
Nosferatu makeup. He's actually pretty charming here, right? So he kind of charms Lucy. I really like the scene that we get after he first meets Mina and Lucy, where they're sitting in their chamber and gossiping, and Lucy is quite taken with the Count. So we see that the vampire is attractive for a lot of the same reasons that he's scary. You know, he's foreign, he has this weird accent, he lives in a cobwebby Gothic
and
castle.
he likes it that way.
And he likes his castles cobwebby and gross and weird. And that's what's creepy about him, but it's also kind of what's sexy about him. Like Lucy is like,
Well, I mean, she's probably sick of meeting the same boring dudes all the time.
Yeah, because she says to Mina, like, oh, you're not into him because he's not like John, you know, and we know how boring John is.
Yeah. Seriously. Poor thing. Of course.
I think that's where a lot of like vampire fiction would go in the years between now and Dracula, is the sort of blending of the sexiness of the character with its creepiness.
I like vampires. I get it. Don't have to sell me on it.
We talked a little bit about the structure of the movie, but I was thinking a lot about the structure this time that I hadn't really thought about before, and just how like weird the movie structure is, like compared to most Hollywood movies. So one thing that's kind of odd is I don't think we really have a protagonist. Like usually in a Hollywood movie, what you have is a main character, and that character has goals. And then there's like some other character that opposes those goals. That's the antagonist. And you have a conflict between them, and then that resolves, and that's like the conclusion of the movie. So if you look at the first movie we watched, Misery, you've got Paul Sheldon, the writer. He's our hero, and his goal is to escape from Annie Wilkes' house and not get killed. And Annie Wilkes' character, her goal is to prevent him from escaping and, if necessary, kill him. So their goals are completely diametrically opposite, and so there's a necessary conflict between them, and that is the story, right? So here, I mean, we have a clear antagonist, which is Dracula, but who's the hero that opposes him?
Well, I thought about this a lot. And my initial answer was Mina, and then I did some research, and that seems to be the consensus, is that it's Mina. It's not
interesting.
just me that made that up, because that sounds like a very me answer. But apparently in the book, she's the one who has the most entries and letters written and stuff, so there's that. And that's kind of how I felt when I was watching it. I felt like, first of all, she's one of the more interesting characters. She gets like just a tad bit more character development than some of the other people. I mean, I feel like it's a little messy in that aspect, as it's not very clear, but I mean, at least it's different.
Yeah, but like, I guess the thing with Mina is like she doesn't seem to have much agency in this story, right? Like, what does she do really? She just gets bitten on the neck while she's lying in bed, and then she sort of turns into a vampire. I guess she tries to stop herself from turning into a vampire a little bit.
There's like some
she tries to warn
inner conflict going on and stuff, sort of. Like I said, it's pretty messy. This is just like the best answer there is. I
mean, I feel like the closest would be Van Helsing, because he's the one who defeats Dracula.
I do think of he's up there too. I think for me it's those two.
Yeah.
In tandem.
And he's the one who like understands what's going on and takes steps to combat Dracula over the course of the film.
Right.
Like ordering for Mina's chamber to have the garlic, and then Dracula will outsmart him and get the maid to remove the garlic, and so then he
Wolfsbane, but
he has to figure out a new plan, and then in the end he wins. But the weird thing is, I mean, with both Mina and Van Helsing, I mean, they only come into the movie like
yeah,
halfway in almost,
Yeah.
right? So that's a little weird. And for Van Helsing, like, it's a bit odd to have a main character who's like this older guy who clearly has a history.
Yeah.
Like, he seems like he already knows all about vampires, and it's like, well, what's his deal?
Right.
Like, why does he know about
I want
vampires?
to know Van Helsing's story.
Yeah, and the film doesn't seem interested in that. So that kind of seems like a character that would be more in the role of a supporting character, like an Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of thing, like the older, wiser guy who like knows stuff because reasons.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. And the interesting thing to me is, I mean, looking at the novel, so the novel is an epistolary novel, meaning that it's composed of diary entries and letters between characters. So I don't think the novel entirely has like one clear main character. Like every chapter has a different narrator.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing things from different characters' perspectives.
It's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, kind of like the Song of Ice and Fire series. But just looking at the novel as like material to write a script, I think the obvious choice is to make Harker the main character. Like, he goes to Transylvania in the beginning, so he's the main character there, and then he comes back, and then he's there for the second half of the story, so he's in both parts of the story. He has to, like, help defeat Dracula at the end somehow. Like, you would beef up his role in the second half rather than taking it away from the first half, as they did here. But they didn't do that with either of the movies we've watched. In Nosferatu, I think it also has an interesting sort of structure where it kind of has two protagonists, I think. You have Hutter and his wife Ellen, and the movie splits its time between them. So they're sort of like dual protagonists. And in the first half of the film, it seems like Hutter is the main character because he's going to Transylvania and doing all this stuff, and Ellen's just kind of like being watched by some friends that they have and like having nightmares and sleepwalking and stuff. But then in the second half of the movie, she sort of takes the leading role, and she has to figure out what the vampire is by reading Hutter's book and then ultimately defeat the vampire. So that's kind of an interesting structure. And then this one I think is like even weirder, where it seems like we have a protagonist in Renfield for the first part of the movie, and then he gets killed, which reminds me of like, so spoiler alert for Psycho. It reminds me of Psycho when we start with one character and then like 40 minutes into the film she gets killed, and it's like, like there's no more characters except the villain. So it's like, is the villain the main character or what's going on? And then it sort of becomes like an ensemble piece for the second half, and that sort of happens here too.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to put it.
So I don't know. Do you think that makes the film more or less effective?
I don't think you really think about it when you're watching it, just because there's a lot going on, and you know, it's just not something you get really hung up on because it flows really well. This isn't a movie that like drags on and on and on, where it's like, oh my god, what? And then like you lose focus, and then, you know, this is a movie where you're pretty much engaged the whole time. So you don't have time to worry about that shit.
Yeah, it's not super long for sure. These early movies are pretty short. And yeah, I mean, Dracula is like interesting enough to keep us wanting to know what'll happen next. But there is this like big middle section in both of these movies where there's just like a thing happening and then another thing happening, and it's like you kind of feel like, okay, where is this even going? You know, like we have Dracula biting the flower seller girl, and then he's going to the opera and meeting these people, and it's like, what?
Well, I guess it kind of makes sense later on.
Yeah, but it's like starting a new movie almost. It's like the first part is like its own story, and it's like now we're kind of introducing this whole other set of characters and like building everything up from the ground up.
Well, I mean, I like it when things are different.
Yeah.
So You can't have the same formula all the time forever.
True. So we were talking last time about what kinds of like cultural anxieties Count Orlok seemed to manifest. Do you have any ideas about what kinds of fears Dracula might represent in the early 30s?
Do you think that they're different?
Well,
because
he's a
in
very different.
Nosferatu, he's ugly
Yeah.
and creepy, and now he's like attractive and charming. So I guess, I mean, maybe I'm insane, but I feel like they could be sort of the same fears but presented in a different way. It's like, look, foreigners are creepy and ugly, avoid them, scream, run. But it's like, look, foreigners look attractive and are charming, but beware of them anyway. You know, it's like the same message, but they're presenting it in a new way.
Maybe, yeah.
That's just how I took it.
I kind of felt that, although, as we said, I think there's even less of a romantic element to this story than there is, at least between Dracula and his female victims, than there is in Nosferatu. I think there's much more of like sexual overtones in this one. In Nosferatu, I feel like the vampire is this hideous being, and when he's feeding on people, it's like he's a parasite or like a wild animal or something. Whereas here, the scenes in which Dracula bites people's necks, although we actually never see the bites happen. There's no blood, and there's not even any fangs. They didn't have any prosthetic teeth for Bela Lugosi to wear. So if you think you remembered that, you might be in a parallel dimension. There might be the Mandela effect may be in place. So the scenes in which he's biting people's necks, they're very sexualized. I think they're sort of these erotic moments, like he's descending on Mina and Lucy while they're in bed, or when he's assaulting the flower selling girl. He sort of like envelops them in his cape. It's like they're hugging.
Well, that's cute.
So it feels sexualized in a way that it didn't in the earlier film. So I think that, there's anxieties around sexuality and like the modern life that people have in the industrial age where they're living in the big city, and you've got, hookers on the street corner, you got flower sellers who might sell something other than flowers, and you kind of have like a certain degree of sexual liberation going on in the 20s and 30s. Not as much as like later on in like the 60s and 70s, but I don't know, you kind of see this theme show up in some early Hollywood movies of like the dangers of this sexual license. So I'm thinking of like another F.W. Murnau film, Sunrise, from 1928, where a man is like lured away by this city woman who's kind of like a flapper, and ends up deciding to murder his wife.
Wow.
Which that's a really good movie, by the way.
Okay.
But I kind of feel like that's part of what's going on here with making the vampire more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense for the times.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like the movie's, like, sexually repressive, and it's particularly concerned with women's sexuality. Like, Dracula mostly preys on women, and it's these, like, strong male figures like Van Helsing that have to protect them. And, like, the solution to the problem is, like, stay in your room, close the window, we'll put all this stuff on the outside, never mind about, like, telling you what's going on, we'll take care of it. And then they go and, like, put the stake through his heart, which is like this.
And so what do you think the moral of that story is?
I mean, I don't know, I think you could...
What's the point?
I mean, like, the straightforward reading would be, like, watch out, ladies, they're these sexy guys that will take advantage of you. Maybe they're
And
foreign.
they wear capes.
Watch out for capes. Watch out for fog and Hungarian
Definitely.
accents.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think I read that pamphlet in high school.
yeah, I mean, yeah, this is very contemporary stuff still. And stick with guys like John Harker.
Definitely.
He's a nice boy.
And boring.
What's wrong with John? He's such a nice boy, And
He would never wear a cape.
be a good girl like Mina and not a bad girl like Lucy. Although Mina's goodness doesn't prevent her from being turned into a vampire.
It does not.
She does get rescued in the end. She is turned back to human form. Whereas Lucy, like, what the hell happened with Lucy? We just never come back to her.
Yeah, and I did notice that. And, I'm sure you know I would notice that.
Yeah, like in the novel, they stake her first.
Well, that's nice.
Way earlier in the story,
because she was
discover
the super slutty one, so she has to go.
Yeah,
right. Quick.
She's the first to die. She turns into a vampire who is known as the Bloofer Lady. Bloofer, the Bloofer Lady, because she stalks children, which is quite a creepy plot element that's here too in this version of the story.
And it says that in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that the annoying.
Well, if they know that much information, why weren't they able to catch her? Well,
it's like, yeah, in this movie, we get the part of the story where she has turned into a vampire. She's visited Mina at night. That's another great line in this movie that I love is when Van Helsing is questioning Mina and John is like, why do you have to question her? Leave her alone, blah, blah, blah. and Van Helsing's like, fuck off. And then he gets back to questioning her, and his first question is, he says, and so when was the next time that you saw Lucy after she was buried? This is a great line. So we get to the part where, she's clearly a vampire and wandering around sucking the blood from children, which is creepy.
You'd think if they were going to cut stuff out, damn.
Yeah, that's
we're going to leave that in?
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing. And then in the book, all that happens, and the characters know, Van Helsing knows that she's a vampire, so they sort of have a stakeout where they, no pun intended, where they watch for her, and they see her go back into her crypt, and then they follow her in there, and they drive the stake through her heart. Mm-hmm. So they save her soul by killing her body. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, they just cut that out, and then so she just disappears from the story after that point. And when they stake Dracula at the end, we see Mina return to her non-vampire form, but we never find out what happened to Lucy.
Well, I sort of imagined my own ending for Lucy.
Which was?
And the rest of the wives.
What happens to them?
The thing happened again where I'm waiting, no, but what about the wives? What do you can't just show me these badass vampire chicks and then just do nothing with them. That I was robbed. So I imagine that Lucy became one of the wives and that they all just went off together, and now they can do all the vampire shit they want to do because, Dracula was, their lord and master, and he was like, no, I'm going to drink your blood, and then now they can just go drink whoever's blood they want.
Yeah.
So they're just, this badass team of vampire chicks who travel the world sucking blood, living it up.
So that could be its whole own movie.
Happily ever after, totally.
Yeah. I hate to rain on your parade, but
what?
I mean, if Dracula being killed turned Mina back to a normal, non-vampire person, why wouldn't it do the same to Lucy? And the other vampire wives?
Well,
I guess my headcanon is Lucy goes back to normal, but we just didn't see it. And the vampire wives go back to normal, but that means they turn to dust because they're hundreds of years old.
Well, I sort of interpreted, maybe I'm insane, but I sort of interpreted Mina as not a full-fledged vampire.
That's true. Maybe she only turned back because she hadn't completely turned.
I feel like Lucy was, and then all the wives are, obviously. They sleep in coffins and the whole 9 yards. So they're full-fledged vampires, and I feel like both Mina and Renfield are like kind of halfsies.
Yeah.
They've got like one foot in the grave.
This is another thing where the movie doesn't totally explain
Yeah.
how the vampires work. Like,
Right.
their powers are kind of nebulous, and also like how you transform into a vampire. What exactly is Renfield?
We should
not
have
explained.
been told these things. I like leaving some things mysterious, but I feel like we should have been informed more clearly about what's going on there.
Okay.
Like, you know, how this works.
I think I am in agreement with you, though, that I wish there was more of the vampire wives in the story.
They're
the brides.
creepy.
I think
creepy
they're the
as hell.
scariest thing in the movie.
They're so scary.
And in the book as well. For me, this is kind of heresy for a English major, but I'm not a huge fan of the novel. Also, my girlfriend is a huge fan of the novel, and I'm not. I think the first part of the novel with Harker in the castle is fantastic. I love that part, but then the rest of it's kind of boring to me.
Okay.
And for me, in the book, the scene with the wives is the scariest scene where they're gonna drink Harker's blood, and it's just like it's creepy how they're like. There's 3 of them and they all move in unison. It's kind of like the twins in The Shining.
Totally.
Like people who are similar looking and move at the same time is creepy.
It is creepy.
And I felt super validated though when I read the book and formed that opinion, and then I went and read about how Bram Stoker came up with the idea.
Ooh.
Because that's my favorite scene, and that scene was the inspiration for the book, because Bram Stoker had a dream where there were these 3 creepy women coming over to drink his blood, and then he heard this booming male voice say, "Get away, that one belongs to me." Mm-hmm. And then he woke up. And so he wrote the whole book around that initial, inspiration. Yeah. And so that made me feel kind of like smart or cool or something, because I sort of felt like that was the most interesting thing in the story. So it makes sense that was where it all came from.
Well, that's crazy. You'd think there'd be more of it then, but, whatever.
Well, so I think a lot of like Bram Stoker scholars think that he was gay or bi and was kind of like closeted, maybe.
Well, he had that friendship that even his wife was jealous of. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
It's like something Irving or something. He was like the guy who... I'm just going to totally wreck this, so I'm not going to say anything.
I know one fun fact about Bram Stoker, which is that his wife had been proposed to by Oscar Wilde and rejected him before she ended up marrying Bram Stoker.
Wasn't
so
Oscar
she
Wilde
was just
gay?
like a magnet for soon-to-be famous
she's a beard.
Gay Irish literary figures.
Huh.
But anyway, so because of that aspect of his biography, I think some of the critics will sort of read into that dream this homoerotic thing with Bram Stoker and this male figure that says he's mine. Mm-hmm. And so I think that maybe explains why he was much more interested in the Dracula figure and made the whole story about him. Mm-hmm. And so I guess that's another way you could read the film, too, is that there's a sort of homoerotic dimension to Renfield's servitude to Dracula, where he, calls him master and says, "I'm your slave."
It's all just like one big homoerotic fantasy.
Yeah. At the same time that it's a nightmare about sexual liberation of women.
Well, okay. Well, those 2 things could go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I feel like vampires being bisexual could all lead back to that. Because, like, pretty much since then, I guess not in, like, the most recent years, but, like, Anne Rice vampires, they, like, they're pansexual as fuck. Like, all of them. I don't know if, like, you have to be pansexual to be a vampire, and that's why you get chosen, or if that's what happens to you when you become a vampire. But it's definitely inspired, like, tons of that shit. You
Yeah.
know?
Definitely. So, I think that's about it for Dracula. Oh crap! We didn't talk about the Spanish version.
I don't know anything about the Spanish version.
So that's about it for Dracula from 1931, directed by Tod Browning. Join us next time. We'll be talking about The Silence of the Lambs from 1991. See ya.
Bye.